everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura and today I want to talk to you about all the books that I read in October. I did not fix the glare. Lovely. So in the month of October, I read 13 books, if I did my math correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I can count. I spent the month of October trying to find a new favorite horror, which I didn't succeed at. You may also clock that I didn't really read that much horror, so maybe that's why. Most of my reading was kind of dedicated to vampires, thrillers, and attempted horror. I was also starting the month in a slump, and really nothing this month stood out to me as like a new favorite of all time, which was disappointing. I did find a new favorite thriller and like one that genuinely scared me, which I've already talked about in a previous video. I'm not gonna talk about it yet. I am going over these books in order of least favorite to my most favorite. Although while I was sorting these based on my Goodreads review, I realized I don't know if I fully agree with my star ratings anymore, but I'm keeping them. So the first book on this list is The Shadows by Alex North, right? Yes. I got this from Book of the Month for my birthday pick. Still actually haven't read the book that I got. Oh, no, you know what I got? I got When I'm Dead by, I think, like Hannah Morrissey, which looked interesting, but then when I added it to my shelf on Goodreads, it said it was number 3 in a series. So disappointed about that. Not sure if that matters. But The Shadows was boring. I barely remember what this was about. I really didn't even care to finish it, but I did. I gave it 2.5 stars. And Alex North is not for me. Nothing about this really scared me, and I was bored. What I vaguely remember is as a child, our protagonist, whose name I've already forgotten, him and his friends were basically like learning how to lucid dream and seeing if they could manifest their lucid dreams into reality. And that kind of concept was really interesting to me, but the execution was so boring. So like there was this incident that happened when he was a child. He's now back in his hometown as an adult, trying to figure out like what was going on. There was like a similar murder situation. I don't remember. There was one really good plot twist that I really enjoyed. The rest of it, so boring, so forgettable. I don't get the hype. He's not for me, and I'm disappointed I even wasted a credit on this, if we're being honest, even if it was a free credit. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books were all 3 stars. I attempted to put them in order of least to most favorite, but like they're all 3 stars, so there's kind of not a lot of differentiation. The first is Orbiting Jupiter, and I read this for a book club pick. It was middle grade. It had some interesting conversations about the foster system, abusive families, told in a way that was digestible for middle grade, and I really liked that. I thought there were some interesting conversations to be had, but overall it was just not like a super memorable book, and I also was not its target audience. I do love some good middle grade while not being the target audience. This one was just kind of very mid for me. It was nothing super special, but I also think if I read it when I was in middle school, I would have probably found it so deep and like so heartbreaking. And it is heartbreaking as an adult to think about what this child went through, but I didn't really care. But that was a library book, so I don't actually have a copy of it. The third book is Charm by Tracy Wolff, which is book 5 in the Crave series, and to date my least favorite. Did I want to know what happened in this book? Because if you know, you know, and if you don't, I don't want to spoil it. Yes, I wanted this information. I wanted it sooner, and I wanted it as a novella. I did not need this many pages of this. And while I do believe it's obviously going to play into what happened at the end of book 4 and what's going to happen in book 6, this was too long and really almost unnecessary. And I can't talk about this book without spoiling books 1 and 2. So that's all I can really say about this. You're following Grace on another adventure in the Crave universe. That's all I can say. That being said, if you like this series, like, it's a fine book, and honestly, it's a good story. Like, I didn't dislike the story. It put a full stop on the momentum. Where book 4 ended, I feel like that really could have ended the series. I don't really get what the point of book 6 is going to be. I'm hesitant to pick it up at this point. And this could have been a novella. Like, they could have been a 4-book series with a novella. I don't think you're going to convince me that book 6 is necessary either. Obviously, I'm trying to read it this month to kind of just be done with the series, but I have no momentum. This kind of halted it for me. So, like, it was fine. For how much I've loved the first 4 books, I'm disappointed how much I didn't like this one. And also the cover is so slippery. Like, and stop. Just need to set you down. Oh, now my nose is red. Cute. And my hair. Okay. This is all kinds of chaos. I'm working on another video and I'm more excited about that one, but it's not going to be ready next week. And I'm trying to upload a video every week. And this was just kind of like an easy one I could do and get out of the way, but now I'm feeling chaotic and I'm clearly just out of the shower, so like everything is just messy. Welcome to my life. The next book is Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison, which I got from Aardvark, which is quickly surpassing book of the month for me. But Black Sheep. This follows a girl who was raised essentially in a cult, and it kind of follows her journey on the outside. Like, she's escaped the cult, she's kind of living her own life, not talking to her family, and she gets invited to her cousin's wedding, and she's deciding if she should go back to the cult for the wedding, kind of confused why she was invited. And I am on the hunt for a good cult story, let me tell you. I have had no success. The closest being Counting the Cost, because that was a true story. But I love the concept of cults in literature, not in real life. I think it's so super interesting, and I did enjoy this. It wasn't scary enough. Like, in real life, what she went through would be terrifying. On page, it's a little more campy. I am looking for like a truly horrific cult story, so let me know if you know one. But this was really interesting. It was my first Rachel Harrison. I enjoy the kind of campy horror that it was. I do think I would read from her again. This just wasn't what I wanted it to be, but it wasn't bad. I just was looking for something a little bit different, but I really enjoyed it. I read it in like a day. It was super easy to read, super fun. And if you like cult stories, at least as far as campy cult, this is a fun one. Scary cult, less so. Then we read Fledgling. And by that, I mean, these are not in the order in which I read them, but the language. So I read Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler because I had to know. Everyone says this is like the most controversial one, and I get it. I think Octavia Butler's writing is stunning. I am obsessed with her writing. I, like everyone else, kind of want to read her entire backlog. This is only the second one I've read. I do have Parable of the Sower on my TBR. I just haven't gotten to it yet, but I figured this was vampiric, and so it's an autumnal, so it's like perfect for October. It kind of wasn't. I think this one is probably one of her worst ones because, like, why is our protagonist visually like 10 to 12 years old? That doesn't feel like that was necessary. And all the critiques of that are very accurate because, yes, she is mentally, I think, in her 50s, give or take. And the whole point is that she's not a vampire. They don't use that term, but that's the closest to understanding what she is. She's basically a vampire. And she didn't, like, the whole point is they grow slower than humans. Like, they are born naturally, they're not created. So they grow physically slower, but like mentally they reach maturity much sooner, if that makes any sense. So she's like visually 10 or 12, but mentally and literally she's like in her 50s. And I don't know, that just didn't feel necessary. They could have easily made her like at least 18 visually. I don't know. Especially because this was written in like 2000, I think. This is actually one of her, 2005. So it was one of her last books, I think. I don't know exactly when she died, but I know it's one of her last ones. And it was good, it was well written, but you really have to get over the fact that she's a visual child throughout this because it's incredibly uncomfortable. Even, but the actual story of her waking up with amnesia, not knowing who she is, where she is, what needs to be done, and how to solve everything, like her amnesia is a huge part of the story, and discovering her roots and kind of how to survive as she is, especially looking so young. And it was really a very interesting story, but I hated that this is what our protagonist looked like age-wise. So I would not recommend this being your first Octavia Butler book, but like once you're aware that she's a fantastic writer and that this is not the norm, then I think you can enjoy it, but it's not going to be for everyone. Then we read Murder in the Family by Kara Hunter, which beautiful cover, mixed media format, which I love. It lost me in the fact that it's basically just reading a TV transcript. So I really had no connection to our characters at all. And when I saw it was a mixed media and you were like solving the mystery like in real time with the people, I thought that was a really cool concept. I thought it was going to be a lot more involved. Like I thought there was going to be different types of mixed media, but you're mostly just reading a TV transcript, which reads really fast, but you don't get any emotional connection to these characters. There were a couple twists that surprised me because we are trying to uncover what happened to this man who was found murdered at his family home when the wife was gone and the 2 or 3 of the children were home, but no one knows what happened. And there's kind of like a lot of little things that just kind of got ignored in the first investigation. So now the youngest child is now an adult and he's in TV. So he's created this show to kind of solve this murder again. He needs to know what happened. And a lot, like the whole murder story itself was really interesting. I just did not like how it was written. But if you like reading TV scripts, I think it's really, really good. I just can't connect with the characters like that. Like I really kind of skip over the names. And that's a me thing. That's not anything wrong with the book. That's just my problem. So I think had this been a different type of mixed media, it would have worked better for me. But I do actually recommend it. I thought it was really interesting. Then I read Alice in Borderland Volume 7, which at this point, we are in season 2 of the TV show. And it had a lot of my favorite game from the show, which was the Jack of Hearts, right? Is that what it was? Yes, Jack of Hearts. And in the show, that followed one of my favorite characters, whose name I'm now gonna forget after saying he's my favorite character. I think it's Chishia. Okay, yes, Chishia. It was really interesting in the TV show. Less so in the books. He's not in it in the books. I mean, he's not in the Jack of Hearts. And the show itself, I think I like a little bit more than the manga series because I was a little bit more connected to the characters and they felt a little more condensed. And maybe that's just because I'm reading these as they release. Like if I was able to read them all kind of back to back, I might feel a little bit differently, but especially this one, there is a long stretch with the King of Spades, which is my least favorite game, both in the book and in the show. It's my least favorite. And the show, I felt like, also dealt with it for too long. The manga deals with it for too long. It's the most boring to me. It's like not even a game compared to the rest. And so I definitely recommend the TV show. I watched it in Japanese with subtitles. I personally think that's the way to go, but it's kind of like a light Squid Game, if you will, which again, I have also been searching for a battle royale that makes me feel something like Squid Game did. Yes, I've read Battle Royale, I've read The Hunger Games, and I love those, but I'm on, like, that did something to me, and I'm trying to find a book that replicates that. But Alice in Borderland, I do recommend it. I do think it's a fun one. And I'm really curious because I know the show got picked up for a season 3, and I don't know if the manga went there or not because I'm not there yet. But I was in the subreddit when that was kind of happening, and they don't remember what they said, if the manga went there or not. So I'd be very curious, especially with how the show ended. I think the book ends similarly, the manga ends the same way, or at least touches on that. So I'm curious where we're gonna go with season 3 and also where these go. Then I read The Deep Sky by Yumi Kitase. I hope that's close, which I read for the Ashley's Little Library Book Club. I really enjoyed that one. I actually gave that 4 stars, so I have moved on to the 4-star ratings. And that follows a girl who is on a space mission to essentially repopulate Planet X. It takes place in a not so distant future where we have destroyed Earth. There's a ton of climate events, and so they have basically selected a group of, like, I think it was 80 children. I mean, they're like teenagers, to go into space and go to Planet X and repopulate. And during this mission, a bomb goes off and they're kind of stuck trying to figure out what to do. Like, this bomb has not only killed people, but it has taken them off course. So, you know, they have a very limited amount of time to make a decision about where to go, what to do. Can they communicate with Earth? What's going on? The teenagers, they graduate like the program, right, to get into the space system, the spaceship, to go in this program. And then they are, like, I don't know, they're frozen in states. I don't know. They're put to sleep for 10 years. What? And then they wake up for, I think, another period of 10 years, and then they sleep again before they get to Planet X. So this is during the time period that they're awake. And so first of all, just imagine going to sleep when you're like 16, waking up when you're 26. So you have none of that period of growth. So you're a 16-year-old adult trying to like make a new colony. That all is insane to me. And then you are now stuck on the ship where you're like, can I trust these people around me? And we're only following Asuka. I think it's Asuka. I think that's how the audiobook narrator said it. And kind of how she feels about it. She's our main protagonist. We follow her in the present timeline, and we flash back to her time in the program. And there's also some interludes with bird facts. And there is another sentient computer named Alpha who gives some serious Aiden vibes, mostly for being sentient AI. I think that's the extent of the comparison, but that was all I could think about the whole time, especially with the AA name. And I liked it. It was fun. It was a sci-fi. I don't read a ton of sci-fi, so it was fun to get out of my comfort zone and try something new. It was just a fun, good time about space, and it terrified me. I don't know how much it would cost to get me to go on that. Like, I mean, if it was my only hope, sure. But like, there were groups on Earth who were like, why are we abandoning Earth instead of fixing it or trying to fix it? They don't really kind of touch on if we have passed the point of fixable climate change in this universe, but there's a lot of conversation to be had of, is it better to just kind of cut our losses and move on, or stay and fix it? And then there's also the issue that the people selected for this mission were all assigned female at birth. They are able to give birth, which is an important factor because they have to repopulate. So they kind of travel with frozen sperm, and they have to get pregnant. So that's like another thing. They're all trying to get pregnant, and they're dealing with this bomb situation. So some of them are like 9 months pregnant while this is going on. There's like just so much stress, and it takes place in like 24 hours. There's so much going on, but the pace doesn't really feel like it's a lot going on. It's a slow moving pace, but I do think it worked for the story. Then I read The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson, which is a Carrie retelling about a girl who passes as white until one day her hair gets wet and basically just grows to the point where people realize that she must be black. And I actually have never read Carrie, and I don't know if I ever intend to. Me and it had a bad relationship, so I've been hesitant to pick up another Stephen King book. But I have seen the movie. This was better than the like 1970s movie. I loved this so much. The only thing I didn't fully love was the epilogue, and not because, okay, well, to be fair, the epilogue does seem to be like an add-on based on that little sticker that says features an original epilogue. So it may have been originally printed without it, and I kind of like the idea of not knowing. The epilogue answers questions that, yes, I had, and yes, I technically am glad that they were answered, but leaving it ambiguous I think would have been a little bit better, but I loved it. This was so, so, so good. If you are a fan of Tiffany D. Jackson, it's an obvious recommend. If you are a fan of the story of Carrie, while I cannot compare the books, I do think this was superior than the movie. And I think in general. Are we done? Okay. I can't compare the books. I don't even know if you can hear the bird. There's this bird that's screaming. But the short answer is I love it and I recommend it, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's better than Stephen King. Are you gonna fall too? And then I read Lore Olympus Volume 5, which is probably my favorite graphic novel series right now, although I say that, but Heartstopper probably is my favorite. But I haven't had a new volume in a while, so. This is following, it's a Hades and Persephone story, but we are following kind of all of the gods of Olympus at various points, but Persephone is interning for Hades. I don't even like remember the full plot at this point. I'm here for the vibes, the beautiful artwork. Like, it's absolutely stunning. I'm emotionally invested in these relationships, and like Minthy, that's how I say it, hated her in Volume 1, turning into one of my favorite side characters in 5. She's having a growth arc and we're here for it. But it's so cute. It's just like, just cozy and fun. Obviously it is not a horror book, but at this point I was slumping. So I was like, graphic novels, please. And I feel like there's a lot of good conversations about mental health. And it's really funny. I think that's a big thing for me. It's so funny and cute. And I love a good Hades and Persephone story. I think a lot of them kind of focus on the abusive side of the relationship. I am here for the cozy romance of Hades and Persephone. I don't want the abusive relationship. I want the cozy relationship, because everything in Greek mythology is abusive. So let's take all of that out, right? Like, let us have the cute, cozy romance. And what I like about this is that it gives Persephone agency. She's not in the underworld by force or by trickery. She's just there. Like, she is making these choices, and I like that so much more for her, which makes the relationship easier to root for. It is an age gap romance. Not that we're barely into the romance in 5 volumes. Like, a lot of it's been pining. But it's also available on the internet. I think it's a Webtoon. Is that what it is? Yes. So it is a Webtoon comic, so you can read it online. I haven't done that. I am waiting for each bound volume, but it does kind of suck to wait every time. But I don't know. These are just so pretty. I like having it, so I buy them. Oh no. Ah! Oh great. Love that. Chaos. Okay. Then I read The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This is my second Taylor Adams book. The first I read was No Exit, and I loved it. Yes, the depictions of being in the ice cold snow were probably unrealistic. That is probably the most common complaint about that book that I've seen. And it's so true. No one would be running around in the snow like that casually. I mean, if you have no other choice, you're going to do it, but like, they should have been way colder than they were. This is about a woman who is house sitting in a very isolated house on the beach, and when she leaves a bad review for an author and creepy things start happening, she starts to think that the author might be harassing her for leaving such a negative review. And I think it is a little on the nose because there have been so many authors in reviewers' spaces causing drama for no reason and making things worse for themselves. Like, reviewer spaces are for reviewers. Maybe the authors need to take a step back. And this had me gripped. I could not read this alone at night. Like, I had to read this during the daytime with the lights on, or around other people. It was just not something, and I don't know, like, it got me. It was creepy, it was terrifying, it was emotional. The end fight lasted a little bit too long, which is why it's a 4-star, not a 5-star, because I think the ending needed to tighten up a little bit. But the twists, the turns, I was gripped. I have another Taylor Adams that I haven't read yet, and I've heard negative things about it. I don't remember what it is, but I will put it on the screen. And I'm kind of tentatively afraid to read it because I feel like I haven't heard anything good. But after loving this one and the other one, I feel like I have to. Everyone has a flop every now and again, so I don't think that book is going to make Taylor Adams a must-buy for me, but I do think he's getting close to being someone I will purchase everything from, because this and No Exit had me so tense. Oh, it's the one that fell. Lovely. Love that for me. And then for my 5-star reads, I had My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine, which this is not like the best book I've ever read, despite the 5 stars. It's because Frederick J. Fitzwilliam had me cracking up every single time he opened his mouth. It was so funny. Like, everything he said was hysterical. And that's the whole point, right? He's this really old vampire who's been asleep for a while. He wakes up and he's trying to adjust to the new world. He's trying to get a roommate, which his reasoning, realistically, is to help him get acclimated to the new world without exposing the fact that he's a vampire. His roommate is super poor, needs a place to stay, and so they end up cohabitating, and she doesn't know he's a vampire. She just thinks he's really weird and formal, and thinks that, you know, Frederick is insane, because when she asked where his pots and pans were, he said they were out for repair. Like, it's weird, it's funny, it doesn't take itself seriously. It is not the most strongly written plot you're ever gonna read. It's dumb, but it was so fun, and it's just cute. And that's all I really want out of a romance. I have low expectations with romance. If you make me laugh, make me smile, and make me like kick my feet because it's cute, it's a 5-star. That's all I need. But I've read a lot of the negative reviews, and like, I get it. Like, this is not like a great book. It was just great for me, and it was cute. And the last book that I gave 5 stars, and I don't have it with me, clearly. If you saw my Britney Spears vlog, I mailed this to that friend that I was talking about. So she has the book now. Thankfully, she gets to see all my chaotic notes, but I don't send dust jackets, so I do have that. Anyway, for all that chaos, it is The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. I mostly give memoirs 5 stars because it's their story. I can't critique their life. And she took the time to write this and tell us her story and tell us her side of things, and that vulnerability deserves 5 stars. And no, she's not a good writer. She's not. She could be. Anyone could be with practice. But that doesn't mean that this didn't evoke emotion, that this wasn't powerful, that this wasn't a compelling read, just because it's not well written. And if you follow her on Instagram, like, you've seen her weird writing that bleeds through here. It does. And it's part of her charm. She's quirky, she's funny, she's honest. The point is, if you were a fan of Britney Spears, you need to read it. It's a good book. It's sad. She's talked about doing a sequel book. And I think that also would be really interesting because it's really short. I feel like she didn't touch on her entire life, and we are not owed that. She does not owe us her entire life story. But this was really about what everyone wanted to know, her growing up and the abuse that she suffered really her entire life. And I think if she did another one, she could focus more kind of on her career specifically, as opposed to how people treated her in relation to her career, which is what this was. And I would love to know more about her career, especially because there are albums, first of all, there are a bunch of demo songs that have been leaked, that I am so curious where those were meant to be in her discography. And like the song Mona Lisa is one of my favorite songs by her, and there was supposedly a totally lost album that would have been on. She did release Mona Lisa, but like as a single, or part of, that might have been on like the Chaotic soundtrack or whatever that she did with Kevin Federline. But Mona Lisa is such a good song that I'm like, if there was a whole album that sounded like that, I would have loved it. So I would love to hear more about that. But this was vulnerable, and it was real, and it was honest, and I loved it. So those are all 13 books that I read in the month of October. And like I said, nothing that was like a new standout favorite for me, but honestly, they were all a good time. I enjoyed pretty much all of these except for The Shadows. That one sucked. I hated it. I don't even know why I gave it 2.5. Probably because of that one plot twist that I didn't catch. So if you have any recommendations, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in another video very soon.